Okay, good morning, guys. So yesterday we discussed about different performance test types in brief, right, at a high level, and today we are going to discuss in detail. And post that, we'll have one quick assessment. I'll show you some graphs, and like you need to identify what type of graphs does that, what type of test does that graph best represents, right? I told you yesterday, I had shown those yesterday, those graphs, few couple of those graphs, isn't it? So yesterday we discussed this at a high level, right? So today we'll discuss, what is the purpose of each performance test type, or what is the objective of each performance test type in detail. And we will also, have a assessment at the end of the session. So before I start today's session, guys, I have some important announcement. So around 10 people are, opted for offline. Okay. And expecting few more after Diwali, right? So we are planning some free soft skills training for them, free soft skills training and free aptitude training for them for only offline guests. Okay. So this is one important announcement that I have. We are charging more for them actually. We are charging 5,000 extra fees for offline participants. So towards that fees, like, we are providing this free soft aptitude training, and as well as this, soft skills training as well. This is not the first time that we are providing, soft skills training. So previously in the previous batches also, we had provided free soft skills training previously as well. All right. So any queries, guys? So that free aptitude training and soft skills training will start from, so this Saturday anyways we are having, most of the guys will be away for Diwali weekend, this weekend. So we are planning to start it from next weekend. That is November 9th onwards. You will have for November 9th onwards, free aptitude training and soft skills training. For offline participants, it will be on every Saturday. Every Saturday. Okay. So because most of them will opt for placement assistance. Those who are like we can guarantee placement for those who are attending offline only, right? Obviously, we cannot monitor online students. So we are providing this those who opt for placement assistance, right? They will get this this free trainings and all. Most of the offline participants will opt for placement assistance. All right. So whether they opt or not, so we are going to provide. For those who are interested, we are going to provide these two as a free thing. Clear, guys? Any queries now? Guys, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the agenda for today. So today we will discuss what are the different types of performance testing, right? In detail, and what is the objective of each type of testing. One of the important interview questions. Let me bring up your class notes document and write it down over there. What are the different types of performance testing? Okay. One of the very important interview question is, okay, and important concept as well, right? Now let us understand, let us discuss in detail what are the different types of testing. The first and foremost one is load testing. So load testing generally simulates current user load on the system, current user load or normal user load on the system, right? So we do load testing with current user load or normal user load on the system. Clear, guys? So let me, what is meant by current user load or normal user load, or how do we know, that current user load or normal user load, right? So if I remember correctly, I had shown you this JHMC property tax website page, right? If you remember that, it will show you the visitor count, isn't it? So if you go to online payments property tax page, so see, this is the current visitors are, this is the current user count on JHMC website. Or normally this website will be having 40,000 users. This JHMC website will be, this is the normal user load on the application. That means our average user load on the application. Sometimes it may be too high or sometimes it may be too less, but this is the normal user load on this application. So if you want to do performance load testing for this JHMC website, we have to do with approximately 40,000 users. Clear, guys? How do we know the visitor count? There are some tools like Google Analytics tools. There are some Google Analytics tools. There are some tools like Google Analytics, which will tell you how many visitors are currently visiting the website, right? So based on that, we will go with that user load and we will do the load testing. And load testing is usually done for 1 to 2 hours, right? And load test ensures that the application is stable and can handle expected peak load. Expected peak load on the application. It ensures that the application is stable and can handle the expected peak load, right? Peak load means highest load in a day. There is peak load is nothing but highest load in any particular day. That is called as peak load. And then load test is the mandatory test that should be done prior to any other performance testing. It is the mandatory test that should be done prior to any other performance testing. Clear, guys? So when they ask, what are the different types of testing, first you should mention load testing. You should first mention load testing and then soak testing. You should follow some order. Understood, guys? Because these are the important types of testing that any application requires. Then you should talk about stress and spike testing. Please remember this. Then you should mention about stress testing and spike testing. And then other types of testing. Okay. First, you should mention this. Some people, no matter what, how many times we'll tell them, they start with stress testing and spike testing. Okay. So that is, digging your own pit. If you are telling other types of testing, they will ask more questions on stress testing and spike testing. So that is nothing but, but usually we will spend most of the time on load testing and soak testing in the training. And, if you tell other types of testing like volume testing or capacity testing, so it is like digging our own pit. Clear, guys? And that is not a proper answer as well. Okay. Please remember this. And next type of testing is soak or endurance test. So what is soak or endurance test? Endurance test is conducted for longer duration based on business hours of the application. It can be 4 hours or 8 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours, or it can be 1 day or 3 days as well. Some applications require, so basically why applications require 1 day or 3 days, we'll discuss that. So first of all, endurance, what is the meaning of endurance? Means long duration, durable or long duration, right? So endurance testing is conducted for longer duration based on the business hours of the application. Now, what is meant by business hour? The hours of the application is how many hours the application will be used continuously in a day, or how many hours usually the application will be used continuously. That is called as business hours. Clear, guys? So it can be 4 hours, or it will be mostly 8 hours. Okay. It will be mostly 8 hours or 12 hours because business hours will be mostly 8 hours or 12 hours. Let me highlight those. Okay. Or 12 hours or 16 hours also. If it is an online application, mostly they will be used for 12 hours or 16 hours. If you take any online applications, isn't it? Or if it is if it is a desktop application, it can be 8 hours. I'll give some examples for this. Okay. What is meant by business hours? Right? Suppose let us take a net banking application, any net banking application like ICICIbank.com or HDFCbank.com or SBIonline.com, onlinesba.com, .SBI, I think, right? That is the URL of SBI net banking, right? SBI net banking. So online SBI.SBI. That is the SBI net banking application. Clear, guys? Retail.onlinesba.sbi /retail/login.html. So if you take any net banking application like this, right? So from which time to which time you will be using mostly these net banking applications, guys? Mostly from which time to which time you
No day hours.
during the daytime, isn't it? Maybe from morning 6 o'clock to evening 10 o'clock, isn't it?
Yes.
Morning 6 o'clock to
Yes.
evening 10 o'clock. Or else, some most of the users will do from maybe 10 to 6 or 10 to 8, isn't it? So those are called as business hours of the application. Those are called as business hours of the application. But let's say you take Amazon.in. Okay. You take Amazon.in. Right? So this is only for India, right? So this domain is only for Indian users, isn't it? That IN represents India, right? So Amazon may be used from morning to evening, from morning 6 o'clock to evening 10 o'clock, isn't it? Yes or no, guys? But these applications, like net banking applications may be used mostly from 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock to evening 10 o'clock, isn't it? So business hours of the application varies from application to application. Yes or no?
Yes.
Usually the business hours of the application varies from application to application. And now let us take one more example. Okay. Suppose if you are consulting this, SBI net banking application or ICICIbank.com. Okay. So as an end user, you and me may be using this application from morning. We can use from morning 6 to night 10, isn't it? But if if you want to make any bill payment or a fund transfer, isn't it? So you'll be using mostly from morning 6 to night 10, right? But if you take if you as an end user, right? But if you go to a bank for depositing cash or withdrawing cash, will the bank employee also use the same net banking application to deposit cash or withdraw cash? Suppose you want to withdraw cash or deposit some cash. Will the bank employee also use the same application
No.
for depositing cash or withdrawing cash?
No.
Huh?
No.
No, obviously no, right? They will not use this net banking application, but they will be using, in India, most of the banks are using a core banking solution called Finacle, right? Finacle Universal Banking Solution. This is the core banking solution that most of the banks are using in India. And Finacle is the product of one of the, one of our Indian company, Indian MNC,
Infosys.
Infosys, right? So yes, so this Finacle is developed by Infosys. Clear, guys? And like bank employees use this Finacle application. But from which time to which time they will use this application, guys? What are the bank timings? Let us take ICICI Bank or SBI. What would be the bank timings generally? Will they work from morning 6 o'clock to night 10 o'clock?
Oh, sir, 10 to 3 or 4.
Right, 10 to 3 or 10 to 5, isn't it? So even though they close the cash hours, but they will be working till 5 o'clock. They will be doing the back end operations or they will be doing the closing operations. So usually they will be working from 10 to 5, isn't it? So those are the business hours of the application. Yes or no, guys? Means they will be continuously using the application from 10 to 5, right? So 10 to 5 means, approximately 7 hours, isn't it? 11, 12, and then 5, 7 hours. So if you are if you are doing soak testing for any, and what is this Finacle? Finacle, is it a web application? So
Client server, I think.
yes.
Client server.
So Finacle is a desktop application. They will install that application on their machine. Okay, it is a desktop application, or that is also called as thick client. Okay, we'll discuss that later. What is thick client? We'll discuss that later. For now, remember that that is not a web application, but that is a desktop application. Okay. Finacle, this core banking solution. This is a core banking solution used as a desktop application by bank employees. If you have any friends in the bank, ask them what is the core banking solution that they are using, which software they are using. Okay. If you have any friends working in the bank. Of course, there are other core banking solutions also other than Finacle. Clear this. Now, they will use this application from hardly 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Isn't it? Mostly 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, if you are doing soak testing for this kind of application, how many hours you have to do that, soak or endurance testing? You can do for 8 hours, isn't it? See, of course, this is 7 hours, right? For 7 hours, this is 7 hours. But like when you are doing soak testing, you will go for 8 hours. Because sometimes they work. They work till 6 p.m. also. Private banks work till 6 p.m. as well. Government banks may not be working. May not be working. I'm not saying that any government bank doesn't work, but they may not be working. But like when they may extend sometimes. Like I'll do one thing. I'll correct it as 5 or 6 p.m. Okay. So the business hours of the application for this desktop application will be 8 hours. So if you are doing soak testing for this desktop application, you have to you need to do for 8 hours, isn't it? Yes or no, guys?
Yes.
But
Yes,
if
sir.
you are doing, if you are doing soak testing for a net banking application like ICICIbank.com or onlinesba.com, onlinesba.sbi or hdfcbank.com, right? Users will be using from morning 10 a.m. to evening 10 a.m. or morning 8 a.m. to evening 10 p.m. Isn't it? Yes or no, guys? If you take any net banking application,
Yes.
so users may be using from morning 8 a.m. to night 10 p.m. Isn't it? So what would be the business hours now for this application? So 4 hours plus 10, 14 hours. So if you want to do soak testing for this application, you can go for 16 hours, 16 hours soak test. Okay. We'll do one thing. So most of the users, we are considering, most of the users, 6 or 8 a.m. to night 10 p.m. So if you are doing soak testing for this, any net banking application, you have to do for 16 hours, duration, right? Because, we want to see the application behavior when an application is used continuously for longer duration. How is the application behavior? That is the first objective, right? And then I mentioned, some applications which, for some applications, we will be doing soak testing for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, 1, 2 or 3 days. Now, which applications require this much time? What kind of applications require, soak test for 1 day or, more than 16 hours? Maybe 20 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours. Can you
Server
mention some
applications.
applications? Yes.
Server level applications. I think.
Not server level applications. Any applications that you can think of which require like soak test for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days?
Kind of make my trip.
What is it?
Make my trip.
Make my trip. Okay. Yeah, good example.
Uh,
But I want better
when there is
example.
an heavy rush kind of any kind of festival seasons kind of thing.
They may be using during midnight also. But I know I want some better example. Good example, but I want some better examples.
Any transportation applications like flight?
What is it?
Big Billion Sale, Amazon, Flipkart,
Okay.
Big Billion Sale.
Okay.
Transport, I mean, traveling
Instagram,
applications like Redbus.
right? Red bus or Instagram, right? Instagram or Twitter. Yes or no? So, see, suppose Instagram.com. So, Instagram.com, like it may be used by users across different countries, right? Or Facebook.com. Yes or no?
Yes.
So
Right? They'll be used more than 16 hours also. They will be used continuously. Those applications will be used continuously. Or WhatsApp, right? So I see like, when I post some status, at midnight, 11
social
o'clock or
media
12 o'clock.
platforms, I guess.
What is that? Social media
Social media
platforms.
platforms, yeah.
Right. Social media platforms like WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook. So they will be subjected to user load, continuously for longer duration, isn't it? Right. So by the time by the time suppose we stop using it in India, some other users may be using it in from some other country, isn't it? So they will be continuously used, or there will be heavy load on those applications continuously, more than 16 hours or more than a day time. So those type of applications require soak test for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. Okay. And what is the main objective is, what is the main objective of doing this soak testing is to identify any performance bottlenecks like memory leaks, connection leaks, when an application is used continuously for longer duration. Okay. The main objective is to find out the application behavior when we are using continuously for longer duration and to identify any performance bottlenecks like memory leaks or connection leaks. Now, what is a memory leak and what is a connection leak? We'll discuss it later. We can discuss that later. It's too early to discuss. But there are some specific objectives of doing SOAK or endurance testing. Okay. So we'll discuss what is a memory leak, what is a connection leak later on, right? But the main objective to do SOAK or endurance test is to find out these bottlenecks, like memory leaks or connection leaks, when an application is used continuously for longer duration. Okay. And then the next type of testing is stress testing. So stress testing is done by gradual increase of user load until the application breaks. Stress testing is, see, what is the meaning of stress we discussed yesterday, right? So stress means more than normal, isn't it? Yes or no, guys? More than normal load is called as a stress. So
Yes.
we do stress testing by gradual increase of user load until the application breaks. Then what is the purpose of this stress test is to identify an application's breaking point. The main purpose of stress testing is to identify an application's breaking point. What is meant by breaking point? What is meant by breaking point? Once an application reaches the breaking point, response times and error count will increase. That we call that as a breaking point. Suppose your application user load is, we'll take this, JHMC website, let's say. Okay. So previously when I checked that, the user load is 40,545. Now let me do a control refresh. Okay. Now see 23,000 users there are there, isn't it? So maybe 40,000 is the peak load on this. Oh, again, it is 41 approximately, right? So the peak load may be 40,000 on this application, isn't it? Now, suppose there are 50,000 users on the application or 55,000, 60,000. Usually in the month end or whenever they keep some offers, right? See, let's say, for example, to pay property tax, there will be some deadline, isn't it? Every month they will have a deadline or every year they will have a deadline. Yes or no? Maybe March 31st would be deadline for financial year, for that particular financial year. Now, like on March 31st or, in the last week, there will be more number of users, right? Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? In the last week of March, there will be more number of users on this GHMC property tax
Yes.
website. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So now, at that time, like, see, the application usually supports 40,000 users, but when in the last week of March, it is important, right, for those kind of applications, because most of the users try to clear the dues, pending dues, in the last week of March. Now the user count may increase. Now the user load may increase to 45,000, 50,000, 55, 60,000, right? And suppose at 60,000 user load, response times are very high and error rate is high. Application is started throwing errors. Then we call that point as a breaking point. We call the user load at which the application starts throwing errors or high response times is called as breaking point of the application. So to find out what is the breaking point of the application, right? We do this stress testing. We do this something called stress testing. And how do we do that? We gradually increase the user load until the application breaks. That is how we do stress testing. Clear, guys? Any queries? Okay. So if you don't have any queries, I'll move to the next slide then. I'll take your silence as no. And the next type of testing is spike testing. Guys, please remember, I'm repeating one more time. When you face this question in the interview, please answer in the same order. Okay. And then the next type of testing is spike testing. Okay. What is spike testing? Spike testing is done by sudden increase in the user load. What is the meaning of a spike, guys? What is the general meaning of a spike? So spike means a sudden increase or sudden surge, isn't it? A sudden surge or sudden increase is called as a spike, right? So spike testing is done by sudden increase of user load beyond your expected load for shorter duration. What is meant by expected load? What is the expected load for this application HMC website? Approximately 40,000.
40,000.
That is the expected load on this application, right? But when there is a sudden increase in the user load, that is called as a spike, isn't it? So, the best application to do spike testing or, which requires spike testing, can someone give some examples of applications which require spike testing?
IRCTC for Tatkal.
Right, IRCTC for, during Tatkal time. Yes, it will have a sudden increase in the user load. Next.
New mobile, Apple mobile launch or something like that.
What is that?
Complex website.
Mobile launch, new mobile launch.
Okay, whenever there is a flash sale, right?
Yeah.
Whenever a new mobile model is launched, they will conduct some flash sale, isn't it? So
Any
whenever there is
online,
a flash sale, right? Then there will be a sudden surge in the user load, isn't it? Right? So those kind of applications require, the spike testing as well. IRCTC or, like Amazon application, because, they will have some flash sale, etc. Right? We discussed about this. I gave these examples already yesterday. Isn't it? Flash sale or whenever there is a big billion sale. Big billion sale, we have to do stress testing basically, and we have to do spike also, of course, right? And then the next type of testing is volume testing. So what is volume testing is? Volume testing is done to verify the response times when there is huge volume of data in the database, when there are huge number of records in the database, like the application behavior, the application performance may degrade, right? What is the meaning of this? So if you take any web application or any application, if you take any web application, so like IRCTC or net banking application like ICICIbank.com, whenever you do some transactions, some records will be added to the database, right? Suppose you do some fund transfer, one record will be added to your database, and you do some fund transfer to your friend, right? Now one record will be added to your account, and the another record will be added to their account as well. Yes or no? You will have a debit transaction and they will have a credit transaction. Suppose you do some fund transfer. Yes or no? You know what is debit and what is credit, everyone?
Yes, yes.
Right? So now, so like that, number of records, or suppose you place some order on Amazon or Flipkart, then, multiple records will be inserted in the database, not just one record. One record may be inserted in the orders table, one record may be inserted in the dispatch table, right? So, multiple records will be inserted in the database. Now, as thousands or lakhs of users are using the application, gradually the number of records in the database will increase, right? The number of records in the database will increase, right? Yes or no? Right? So as number of records in the database increase, suppose you do some search operation. Suppose you search for, you went to Amazon, and in Amazon there is an option called view orders, isn't it? You go to Amazon and you can check your previous orders, isn't it? Now when you use this option, right, like it, as the number of records increase, right? So this query may be executed slower, isn't it? Yes or no, yes? As the number of records increase in the database. Now, so volume testing is done to verify the response times when there is huge volume of data in the database, right? It is also referred as flood testing, right? And volume testing is done to analyze the system performance by increasing the volume of data in the database, right? So that means we'll be doing performance testing in a separate environment, right? No, we'll not do in the production environment. So what if we want to do volume testing? First, we insert number of records into the database, right, in the test environment, and then we have to do volume testing. Clear, guys?
So Pawan, I have a query.
Yes.
Can you explain me? It is also referred to as a flood testing that I did not understood clearly.
Flood testing means huge volume of data. That's it. That's why we do some testing with a huge volume of data. That's why it is called as flood testing.
Okay, Pawan.
Okay. And then next type of testing is scalability testing. This is not so important, guys. Most of the people refer to that as volume testing only. That's why I did not highlight it. Okay. But if you see here, spike testing, I had highlighted this. This is something that we do with sudden increase in the user load. Soak test is something which we do for longer duration. And stress test is something which we do with gradual increase of user load. So wherever you have some highlighted points, right, those are important to understand. Okay. And the volume testing, scalability testing, failover testing, these are not so important. That's why I did not, you can see that I didn't highlight any statement over there, right? But these are the most important: load and soak, and then stress and spike. These are most important. And that is why here also you can see that I have highlighted these two in a different color, and here I used bold here. Because these two are mandatory types of test for any application. Next comes this testing. So basically these first four are important for very important for any application. So you need to mention, like, what are the different types of testing means. You cannot miss these. You should not miss this. These first four. But even if you don't tell the other types of testing, that is also fine. That is absolutely fine. But you cannot miss these top four. Okay. Now the next type of testing is scalability testing. Scalability testing is performed to identify if the application is capable to scale up in terms of user load. Means usually the scalability testing is done for future user load, right? Suppose I think yesterday we discussed that. Scalability testing is testing an application for future user load. For example, Facebook is having 2 billion users. Let's assume that there are 2 billion users for Facebook, and they are having projections that by next year or next to next year they will be having 33 billion users. Now they will do test. They will do test with the performance test with 3 billion users to verify whether the application can support that feature user load or not. That is scalability testing, right? And failure testing we discussed yesterday. I had explained with a nice example, yesterday. What is failure testing, isn't it? So any queries, guys, before we move to the assessment part? So these are the different types of testing. As I told you, first four are very important. Load testing, soak testing, stress and spike are very important, right? In interviews, they will ask you what are the different types of testing, or they can ask you in this way. Okay. Or they can ask you in this way. What are the different types of testing that you executed in your project? What are the different types of performance testing that you executed in most of the projects? That you executed in most of the projects. Okay, this is particularly for experienced guys. So you need to tell load testing and soak testing. Most of the times, most of the projects we executed load and soak testing. Apart from that, in some projects we executed stress and spike also, because every application doesn't require stress and spike. Right? So you need to answer in this way. And in the same order, please. Okay, please answer in the same order.
Hi, Pawan. I have one doubt here.
Yes.
In OTT platforms, any new web series came, more number of users are logging to see that, watch that web series, right? So at
Yes.
that time,
Yeah,
we
those
will
applications require at least stress
testing.
testing as a minimum thing.
Okay,
Right?
that is called stress testing.
Yes, more than
Okay.
normal load, right? They will have more than normal load whenever there is a what you said, OTT platform. What is that? Your web series.
Yeah,
Whenever a
any
new
new
web
web
series is
series,
launched.
come.
Yeah.
So most.
Right. So obviously they will have more than expected user load, isn't it?
Yes.
More than normal load. So stress testing is mandatory for them.
Okay. Thank you.
But all the users may not be watching at once, right? They may not require a spike testing, isn't it? Because all the users will not watch it at once, isn't it? But if there is,
Yes.
if there is any trailer launch of any movies, YouTube will have a lot of users. A sudden spike will be there. Yes or no? When there is a trailer launch on YouTube. Yes or no, guys? All
Yes.
all the heroes fans will be competing to watch that, to set the records for their hero. Yes or no? So obviously they will watch at the same time. They will watch it as soon as the trailer is launched, isn't it? So those applications require spike testing. Understood, guys? Any other queries, guys?
So what is the difference between stress testing and scalability testing? You are anyhow increasing the total number of load beyond the expected load, right? So how are they different?
Okay. So this is something we do with, until the application breaks. This is something we do till the application breaks. Okay. See, but this we will do. Scalability testing will be done, till the projected load. For example, your Facebook current user load is 2 billion and their projections are 3 billion by next year. They will test only till 3 billion, or they will test till that, different. approximate projection value, projected user load, but they
Okay.
will not test it beyond till the breaking point of the application.
In
If they are
scalable testing,
testing
you know in scalable testing you already know the user load. In stress testing, you don't know the user load.
right. Yeah, good question, Madhav. Any other queries? Okay. So if you don't have any queries, shall we move to the assessment, guys? Now, and please remember, in interviews, they will not show you the graphs and they will not ask you to identify, but, they will ask you to draw the graph for, different types of testing. They may ask you to draw a graph for different types of testing. Okay. In interviews, they will not ask that, but however, I am going to show you some graphs and, you need to identify what type of test does that graph best represents. Before that, let me explain, like something about this graph. Okay. So if you see this particular graph, this is called as x-axis. Everyone knows that, the horizontal line is called as x-axis and, vertical line is called as y-axis, isn't it? So on the x-axis, test duration is specified or represented. The test time or test duration is represented on x-axis. 1h means 1 hour, 1 hour, right? And on the y-axis, virtual users are represented. On y-axis, virtual users are represented. And what does this mean? We are gradually increasing the user load, maintaining a steady state, and ramping down the users. So this is called as ramp up period. See, this one is called as ramp up period. Let me write it down here. So ramp up. I'm explaining the graph, guys. This is called as ramp up. And this one is called as steady state. Means there is no change in the user load here. So this is called as steady state. Okay. And then this is called as ramp down. Means we are decreasing the users here. That is called as ramp down. Okay. And and this test is executed for 1 hour. Okay. Now can you tell, it's easy to identify what type of test does this graph best represents.
Load test.
Right, load test. This graph represents load test. So because this is done. See, we already discussed load test is something which we do for 1 to 2 hours, isn't it? So this graph best represents load test. Now, what type of test does this graph best represents? The reason why I explained this, ramp up, ramp down is, you will have this. You need to understand what is ramp up here, what is this line, what is this line, right? You need to understand those. That's why I explained that. So assume that this is the normal user load on the application. Okay. Now what type of, and this is ramp up. This is ramp up. Now what type of test does this graph best represents?
Spike.
Right.
Spike.
This graph best represents a spike test because you can see here, there is a sudden surge in the user load for only shorter duration. That is not throughout the test duration, isn't it? Again, there is a sudden surge in the user load, right? There are two spikes in this test, right? This is the normal user load. Okay. This is the normal user load on the application, and in between there are two spikes. So this graph best represents a spike test, right? And now what type of test does this graph best represents? Let me clear the drawings. Yeah. Now what type of test does this graph best represents?
Stress.
Right. This graph best represents a stress test, right? So because we are gradually increasing the user load here, we are gradually increasing the user load. Ramp up, steady state. Again ramp up, steady state. Again ramp up, steady state. Isn't it? So this graph best represents a stress test, right? So let me ask, few people, guys. Let me, please, others, please wait for them to answer. So Ganpati, what type of test does this graph best represents?
Load.
Load test.
Load test.
Okay.
And,
This one.
This one 1 hour.
So this one 5 hours load test.
5 hours.
This is okay. Please wait. Raghunath, wait, not Raghunath. Please wait. Praveen. Praveen, did you attend any previous session, Praveen?
Load test 1 or 2.
Sir.
Praveen. Did you attend yesterday?
I've not attended.
Okay, today's session, are you focusing on today's session?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What type of test does this graph best represents?
No test.
Load testing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Let me ask others. Lokesh.
long duration based on the business hour.
Lokesh.
Hello, sir.
What type of test does this graph best represents?
Load test, sir.
Load test. This one.
This one
What
load test, sir.
what would be the load test duration that I told now today? Guys,
1 to 2 hours, sir.
1 to 2 hours. Now here it is shown as 5 hours.
5 hours, sir.
Then what type of test does this graph represents?
Sir, that is so-called endurance test.
Soccer incidents.
Right. This is so-called
1 or 2
endurance
days.
test. Guys, long duration. This is long duration test. 5 hours
Long
is the long
duration based
duration.
on hours on
Load
applications 1 or
test
2
is
days.
done for only 1 to 2 hours, not more than that. Okay. This is long. Basically, I will get an idea who can answer and who cannot or who may not be able to answer. That's why I'm asking particularly those guys, right? And in the beginning of the session itself, I told that we'll ask some graphs, so be careful. Or I told you about assessment. I gave you a heads up about assessment, but still you guys are not focusing, right? Just analyze yourself. You just check with yourself. And now, what type of graph does this? What type of test does this graph best represents? Observe here, till now all the graphs are having
Volume
virtual.
test, I guess.
Yeah. Observe here, all the previous graphs are having test duration on the x-axis and virtual users on the y-axis. However, here on y-axis you are seeing data quantity. Data quantity means number of records, right? And it is increasing over time, right? So now what type of test does this graph represents?
Volume test.
Volume testing, right? Any queries, guys, before we close today's session? I'll stop it here for today. Tomorrow we'll discuss what is the importance of performance testing, what is meant by visitor bounce rates, and what are the prerequisites for doing performance testing. Okay. So any queries? So remember one more, I'm repeating one more time. In interviews, they will ask you to share your screen and draw the graph if you are attending virtual interview. Or else if you are attending direct interview, face-to-face interview, they will ask you to draw the graph. They will not draw the graph and ask you. Okay. But as this is beginning of the course, I am showing you some graphs and asking you to identify. By the end of the training, you should be able to, by end of discussing all these types of testing, you should be able to identify and you should be able to draw these graphs, not only these graphs, but how to draw a hits per second graph, throughput graph, etc. Okay. There are a couple of other concepts that we will discuss called hits per second, throughput, etc. You should be able to draw the graphs for them. Understood, guys? They will not draw the graphs and they will not ask you to identify in interviews. Okay. So with this, I'll stop it here for today. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. Any queries before we close today's session?
No queries
Pawan,
Praveen. Just one thing. Is there any NFT option available so that I can make a NFT?
Is there any?
NFT option available for making the payment?
Okay. Yeah, I'll respond to you on WhatsApp.
Okay, thank you.
Pawan, I have one more query. Bottlenecks is nothing but errors, right?
Bottleneck doesn't exactly mean errors. Whenever there are bottlenecks, application will throw some errors. Okay. Bottlenecks means performance issues. Performance issues, it is not errors exactly, but a bottleneck causes errors. A performance bottleneck causes some errors.
Understood, Pawan.
We'll discuss that later on. What is a bottleneck? What kind of errors the application throws whenever that bottleneck, whenever an application is having some bottlenecks, what are the possible errors that you can see? Right? We'll discuss that. And how to fix them. If you identify some bottleneck, how to fix them, or how to provide a recommendation to the client, right? We'll discuss that in the last 1 week of the training. Okay.
Okay,
Friends,
Pawan.
I want to take the names who are interested for aptitude training and soft skills training because, I need to plan the logistics. Or I need to, trainer will ask, head count basically. So aptitude training I can also give, but, soft skills I can't give. There will be a separate trainer for soft skills training. So I need head count first. Okay. Who all are interested for this aptitude and soft skills training on Saturday? Remember, it will be on Saturday, every Saturday or alternate days. Or it can be on alternate days. Actually, last time when we conducted this soft skills training, we ran it on alternate days. Okay, Monday and then Wednesday and then Friday. That is how we ran it last time. So who all are interested to attend this aptitude and soft skills training? 1 hour, there will be 1 hour
Pawan,
soft skills training. And
I'm
1 hour
interested,
aptitude.
Pawan.
What is it?
I'm interested.
Okay, Santosh. Okay.
Sir,
Next,
I'm also interested.
Raghu.
Sir, I am also interested.
And Pawan, this is any extra kind of fees or else it's included?
No, that's what I mentioned. Free training and free aptitude training and soft skills training.
Okay.
So this is free for offline participants. Okay. But if any online participants want to join, there will be extra fees for them. Because, anyways, there is fees difference between online and offline, right? For offline participants, we are charging, 5,000 extra for recorded sessions and all. So we are providing this also free of cost in that, extra 5,000. So if offline participants, online participants, if anyone want to attend that on Saturdays, if it is on Saturdays, they need to pay extra fees. Okay, but for offline, those who are attending offline, they are already paying 5,000 extra. So this will be free for them. Yeah. Anyone else?
I am
Want to
interested.
Shravani, sir.
Lokesh,
Sir, I
sir.
want to join.
Ganpati, Lokesh. Okay.
Gracie also, sir.
So because, you should be interested first, right? Otherwise, it will not be successful.
And I guess Ramakrishna also interested, but he left the session due to low charging. He texted me.
Okay. Okay. So everyone, yes, I know that, we know that like most of the offline participants would be interested, but I just want to confirm. All right then. So we will, I will engage the, soft skills trainer. I will, I will give some heads up to him so that, he can plan to take sessions from November onwards, 9th November mostly. Okay. Aptitude training, I myself will be delivering that. All right then. So I'll stop it here for today. We'll continue tomorrow, guys.